wanted to get to the interview, but yeah, we'll get some more coming up here in just a minute, though. So tell us, where are you right now? Are you back in Arkansas? Are you in D.C.? What's going on with you?
We are in D.C. Right now, and still in session, wrapping up the week.
Okay, so how are things? Like, what's going on right now?
Well, you may have seen the news on this. We voted on a balanced budget amendment. As you know, I've talked to you about this many times. I've worked hard to try and get a balanced budget amendment to the floor. I make this an issue every year, and this is the second time in the almost 8 years that I've been here that I've been given the opportunity to vote on a balanced budget amendment, and yet we still had 6 Republicans who voted no. So I'm trying to figure that one out. We had 3 Democrats that voted yes, but ultimately we had 233 votes. You need 287 to send it over to the Senate, so we fell short over here.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. And right now it seems like there's if you read the media reports, I mean, the media, the liberal media, they're out there saying, hey, Republicans are worried and they're scared and about the midterms and things like that. And then you hear, if you go to the liberal, really the ones that are openly liberal, it's like a blue wave is coming and that sort of thing. And so you talk a little bit about that. I mean, what are your thoughts on the potential of a blue wave?
Well, I tell you what, the punditry has got it wrong consistently. They were decidedly wrong on President Trump. There must have been 90+% of the media that projected him. Not just, we think he's, going to lose, but, we're projecting Hillary as the winner. I mean, they were doing everything in the world they could to, line up for a coronation, and they were all wrong. And their polling underlying their projections was wrong. And they haven't learned from anything. They haven't learned, their polling methodology was flawed, and they haven't learned, really what drove people to vote for Donald Trump in the first place. And I think that sentiment still exists widely across the country, and that you really want to see Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, because she's not doing her team any favors by continually going out there and, talking about the crumbs of tax reform and things of that nature. And she had the temerity to talk about, to quote Martin Luther King, I think it was yesterday or the day before, talking about, when there are people in abject poverty, there shouldn't be people with, opulent wealth, paraphrasing. And she is one of those that is opulently wealthy. I mean, it boggles the mind that she can stand there straight-faced and say some of the things that she says and expect people are going to connect with that and believe it. She comes from a very wealthy family. She's one of the richest members of Congress, and yet she's going to try and pretend as though somehow she's got a connection to the poor, downtrodden people of America who are barely getting by, and then at the same time calling their tax reform bonus, crumbs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge disconnect there. The left is lurching further. I mean, the Democrats in Washington are lurching further and further to the left. And as long as they have Nancy Pelosi as their poster child, I don't think they can expect the blue wave that they're talking about.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I'm just hoping that. To me, let me just say this: there is not a positive word that the press can say about President Donald Trump, and without even getting into the Russia situation and their constant obsession with that. But it seems to me that if you really kind of take a long view of this over the first year of his presidency into now, there's a lot of traps and nets that I feel like that the media and the left, they fall into their own nets. They fall into their own traps for this guy. I mean, right now we're looking at an amazing situation that happened last week. Saudi Arabia recognized Israel's right to exist. And you look at the Korean Peninsula potentially being denuclearized if
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, good morning. Happy Monday to you. Thanks for starting the beginning of your week with us here. It's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, and we're building a liberty machine here, and we're so glad that you're with us. Give us a phone call or a text message, 870-275-9799. See it up there on your screen. If you are watching over at facebook.com/Conduit News, conduitnews.com, or on the YouTube channel, Conduit News. Feel free, if you're on the YouTube side of things, make sure you hit subscribe and click the little bell for notifications. Man, I'm telling you, it was a big news week. And when we got off the radio on Friday, there was a ton of stuff that came down the pike. A big story out of the Arkansas Times where they broke the story about the potential Rusty Cranford changing his plea from guilty to not guilty up in the Missouri court. And that's scheduled for sometime this week. Now, we'll talk more about that here in a minute, but what we actually went on a special, did a special broadcast, I guess Saturday afternoon, just to kind of talk about both of these situations. The second one being the Jake Files getting a special prosecutor. Daniel Shue, the prosecuting attorney for that district over there, district in District 8 there, basically asking for a special prosecutor, then a judge issuing an order saying, yeah, this is proper. We need to have one as soon as possible to investigate potential criminal conduct of Jake Files. Now, keep in mind, Jake Files pled guilty to taking general improvement funds and funneling it to one of his employees, who then opened up an account in her name and took out the cash and a cashier's check and gave it to Senator Jake Files. And he paid his employees with it, and he pocketed the rest. Now, so he pled guilty already to this, but there has been no mention as to whether or not this $80,000 wire transfer that was revealed because of his, because he had some business problems. He got sued by a bank because of his house and everything else, his mortgage, and it was a very large house. And in the discovery process, they found a $80,000 wire transfer from David Norsworthy to Jake Files' business. This was shortly after they filed a tort reform bill. It's not the same one that we're going to be voting on this November, because this was a few years ago, but it's very similar. And I have been saying that this tort reform amendment that we're going to be voting on this November has been specifically crafted for the nursing home industry. People want to talk about it's going to bring jobs, economic development. They want to talk about how it's going to increase your health care options and things like that. And it's laughable because this was going to help nursing home owners. That's who it was designed to help. It was not some sort of tort reform amendment that you would think of, in a traditional conservative manner of, hey, we need maybe loser pay, or we need to try to stop the frivolous lawsuits and what. This is not that. This goes so much further than that. To give the legislature the ability to set rules of evidence in a case, which is we know. I mean, let me tell you something right now. We have got a level of corruption in the state of Arkansas that is just embarrassing right now. It is absolutely embarrassing. And our leaders, the people who are in positions of power, the people who are at the top of the Republican Party of Arkansas, they are not coming out with a plan. They are not coming out with any sort of bullet point list of this is what we have to do to clean up corruption here in the state of Arkansas. And you know why I think they haven't come out with a plan yet? Because I think they've got to figure out who's still left standing when this is all said and done. And I think it's a lot of their friends. I think they've got a lot of friends. They got a lot of acquaintances down there We don't know who this is going to entail. We don't know, when it's all said and done, we don't know how many of lobbyists, how many politicians are going to go down here. We really don't. I mean, only in Arkansas can you have a judge admit to taking a $10,000 bribe to lower a judgment in a case where the nursing home owner was, found to have been guilty of neglect, and the jury awarded a big sum of money, and the judge takes a bribe to lower it. Only in Arkansas do we then, a few years later, go ahead and give the nursing homes what they want and put the tort reform amendment on the November ballot. And if you criticize it, you're a traitor, or you have an unholy alliance with the trial lawyers. No. Just because you guys say something does not make it true. Okay? This is about the separation of powers. It's about somebody in any profession in this country being able to make or charge whatever they want to charge. It's also about the right to trial by jury. It's also about, how much is a human life worth. And there's a reason pro-life organizations like the Family Council have come out against this, because they believe in a pro-life platform from conception to natural death. And they believe, as I believe, that this is seriously going to this is going to hurt people who are trying to, who are in the last stages of their life, so to speak, depending on, nursing homes and that sort of thing. So, some of these Facebook comments are great. Folks, you can watch us over at facebook.com/Conduit News. So the big news this weekend, when we got off the radio, was this story about Senator Jake Files. Let's just go to the source here, or let's go to the Times Record. Okay, the Times Record, special prosecutor requested in Jake Files wire transfer investigation. Okay, this was back on June the 2nd. Says the Sebastian County prosecutor, John Lovett, writing this, which, by the way, he's done some amazing stuff, really good reporting with all of this. I mean, it was the Times Record that made us aware, because they were paying attention. The Times Record were the people that made us aware of the $80,000 wire transfer from a nursing home lobbyist to Jake Files. They have really been on top of this. The Sebastian County prosecutors filed a motion with the state prosecutor coordinator to appoint a special prosecutor in a new investigation of a 2014 wire transfer of $80,000 from an Arkansas nursing home group partner to then State Senator Jake Files' Fort Smith-based construction company. Sebastian County prosecutor Dan Shue made the request to keep from having any perceived conflict of interest. Shue also sent a letter to the U.S. Attorney Dak Keese, Dwayne Dak Keese, on April 10th to inquire if the wire transfer was made in violation of federal law. Files is currently scheduled for sentencing on June 18th in U.S. District Court on one count each of wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering in relation to improper use of State General Improvement Fund money for the River Valley Sports Complex. Files pled guilty in January. It says Bob McMahon, a prosecutor coordinator with the Arkansas Office of Prosecutor Coordinator, said Friday he has sent a letter to Sebastian County Circuit Judge recommending a prosecutor from McMahon's office in Little Rock to serve as special prosecutor in the wire transfer investigation. The Times here reminding us what I just said, the $80,000 wire transfer from David Norsworthy was exposed by the Times Record in May 2017 following its appearance in court documents not listed as confidential and part of discovery in a lawsuit against Files' now defunct business FFH Construction. Here's the kicker. The wire transfer came to FFH Construction's First National Bank account 1 week after Arkansas Senate Joint Resolution 1 was filed to amend the Arkansas Constitution concerning civil claims and court procedures. That measure died in committee, but a similar attempt to limit civil suits was revived with a petition and failed to reach a public vote as Issue 4 in 2016 when the Arkansas Supreme Court took it off the ballot. However, a similar effort through Senate Joint Resolution 8, which Files co-sponsored, will be up for a vote in November as Issue 1. David Norsworthy is currently a board member of the Arkansas Healthcare Association and advocate for issue 1 on the November ballot. No explanation has been given. Yeah, and Norsworthy got that position. Okay, he's on the Arkansas Healthcare Association. He ASA appoints that position. ASA actually appointed David Norsworthy to a nursing home board, one of the many nursing home boards, to replace. You know who he replaced? Michael Morton. You know who Michael Morton is? Michael Morton is the nursing home owner who was in the case with Mike Maggio, the judge that said he accepted a bribe, pled guilty to lower a judgment. That was Michael Morton's nursing home that was involved in that case. And when that came to light, Michael Morton didn't need to be on that board anymore. I think we can all agree Michael Morton shouldn't have been on that particular nursing home board. So who was his replacement? David Norsworthy. I'm telling you, this is very interesting. Let's actually go to the documents. Let's go to the documents. I've got a PDF file pulled up there, Joe. And we shared we did a special broadcast on Saturday just on Facebook and digital platforms because I wanted to go over this. But here it is. This is from Daniel Shue, and he is essentially saying, Dear Bob, this is Bob McMahon. Please find a motion and order that I caused to be filed today. And you will recall I spoke to you last Friday regarding this matter. Keep going down here. I'm going to read off the screen. And we keep going. We're going to go, just keep going, Joe. Yeah, here we go. So this is in the matter of the appointment of a special prosecuting attorney, Jake Files. Motion for designation and appointment of a special prosecuting attorney. Keep going down. And eventually we get to Judge Tabor issuing an order at the very end there. Keep going, and there. Here we go, right here. So this is the meat of it. Okay, now on this 25th day of May 2018, came on for hearing a motion for designation and appointment of special prosecuting attorney made by the state of Arkansas by and through Daniel Shue, prosecuting attorney for the 12th Judicial District, and the court being sufficiently advised as to all facts and matters herein, does hereby find that the motion for designation and appointment of special prosecuting attorney is proper and should be granted. A duly qualified person shall be appointed as soon as practicable to serve as special prosecuting attorney, being vested with the same constitutional and statutory powers as those of the elected prosecuting attorney in the 12th Judicial District, and shall have full investigative and prosecutorial authority in the investigation and prosecuting of any criminal conduct relating to Jake Files, a former state senator. Further, the appointed designee of the office of prosecutor coordinator as special prosecuting attorney shall be in full force and effect upon their taking the oath of office and its filing with the Sebastian County Circuit Clerk, and said commission shall expire upon completion of the above stated investigation and or any related prosecutions or until further order of this court. Be it so ordered. This 25th day of May 2018, Stephen Tabor, Circuit Judge, approved. Daniel Shue, Prosecuting Attorney, 12th Judicial District. So this is a state matter. It's important you understand this is a state matter here. We don't know what the feds are going to do. We don't know what the feds have planned. We don't know who Jake Files has given up. Jake Files took a plea. Jake Files took a plea. And part of that plea might have been, hey, we're not even going to mention the $80,000 because, we're going to need you to basically expose the people that gave you the $80,000. We are interested in that. We are interested in taking down the good old boy. I hope this is the case. I really do. I hope that the FBI has been interested in trying to take down this good old boy system here in Arkansas that used to be run by Democrats and now is run by Republicans. And the people have just been asking for reform. We've been voting for limited government. We've been voting for a different way of doing things, and we haven't been getting it. It's obvious that that's the case. The corruption, it's almost a weekly thing. And this stuff with Rusty Cranford, I got to tell you, there are people terrified right now with what Rusty Cranford knows. I'm going to cover that here in just a little bit. Folks, I really appreciate you sticking with us. Conduit News, we're going to continue to be a conduit of truth from power to the people. We're going to get you the facts, and we're going to keep shining the light on this corruption because we've got to have a more honest government. And right now, I think there's a lot of dishonesty out there. We're going to take a break and be back in just a moment. Thanks for listening.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in a situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist healthcare program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
I'll talk a little bit more about Rusty Cranford, this lobbyist on trial, probably going to change his plea. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up here at 6:33. I have some interesting thoughts on it. It really just kind of came to me this morning. Coming up in about an hour, we're going to be talking with Fort Smith attorney Joey McCutcheon. and we'll continue this conversation about Jake Files getting a special prosecutor. I am excited to talk to Joey to see what he has to say, what the feeling is on the ground, in western Arkansas, in Sebastian County and in that area, because it's a huge. This is a big deal. I mean, the people of District 8 out of Fort Smith. You guys had a public servant that stole from you to prop up his construction business. You had a guy who was so well connected with the Republican Party establishment that he managed to get the committee appointment as the chairman of the most powerful committee in Little Rock, the Committee on Revenue and Taxation. Little did we know Jake Files was more concerned with his own personal revenue at the expense of you and me. It is a huge, huge story, and he is extremely guilty. Everybody knew it. You had a sworn FBI affidavit under the penalty of perjury in order to go, take his phones and his computers in the search warrant. The reason this is a big deal is because he pled guilty, presumably to give somebody else up. That's maybe that's a stupid assumption, but that I feel like, moving forward, that's what my assumption is that he pled guilty and he took a plea because he's giving some other piece of information up. Now, does it have to do with the $80,000 and the David Norsworthy thing? I don't know. I'm not sure. But we'll be talking with Joey McCutcheon about that coming up at 7:33. Also, Joey McCutcheon is the attorney for Jim Parsons. Jim Parsons is the one that filed a lawsuit against Ecclesia College because he wanted to know, they got General Improvement Fund money, and he wanted to know, what did you do with it? How did you spend it? We have a right to know. Ecclesia says, no, we don't have to tell you this. We're a private Christian college. Said, well, with respect, you took taxpayer money just because you're a nonprofit Christian college, but you took taxpayer money, and it's not to mention it's at the heart of a huge scandal involving the president who pled guilty to the money laundering scheme with John Woods and Micah Neal. I think we need to know a little bit more about. No. We're a nonprofit, they said. We're not going to comply. And then we said. Then Joey McCutcheon said, okay, you have to comply. Here are the reasons. They said, well, we're a church. We're a church. Well, then that was contradictory because you can't give taxpayer money to a church. That's unconstitutional according to the Arkansas Constitution. And so there was all of this resistance. Well, on last Thursday, they turned over what was described by the Democrat Gazette as a trove of documents. I'm not sure if Joey McCutcheon, the attorney there, has had time to go through them all, but we're going to talk to Joey about what's, if anything, is in these documents and that sort of thing. Again, coming up at 7:33, we're going to talk about those two issues with Joey McCutcheon. Then at 7 o'clock, we will be talking with Senator Linda Collins Smith. There was an interesting article that was in the Gazette the other day about guns and people concerned with gun violence. It was Cynthia Howell's article back on May the 31st. The headline was "Concerns Voiced on Guns in Arkansas Schools. Moms, Educators Get Turned in Front of Commission." You see, there's a commission that ASA formed, the governor formed after the Florida shooting. Okay, after that Florida shooting, there was a commission that was formed, and they're looking into ways. It's called the State School Safety Commission. So I would have talked to Senator Linda Collins Smith about that, who, in spite of her primary loss, she still has a remainder of her term left and is one of the best Second Amendment supporters that we have for the time being down at the Marble Palace. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. When we come back, I want to talk about the Cranford Coalition. Kim Jong-un and the meeting actually takes place. I mean, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of positive, and then there's some potential positive things, and I think President Trump is an integral part of that right now.
No, I think that's true, and I think that you would think after almost a year and a half in, as he's been president now for almost a year and a half, he's proven them wrong at every turn. I mean, I don't always agree with necessarily the tone or the type of rhetoric that the president puts out there. But one of the things that I've had to come to terms with, and I had to do this with Obama, you've got to look past the personality and look at the policy, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, our economic trajectory has improved tremendously. Opportunities for people across the economic spectrum are much, much better. I mean, historically better. And so, I know it's easy to focus in on someone with a big personality, be honest about it, a big ego. It's easy to get focused in on all of that. And that's one of the things that I've had to condition myself to is to look beyond that and just focus in on the policy and the numbers. And you'll see that there is an awful lot to be excited about that has transpired over the last year and a half or so, and that's directly attributable to this president. Mm-hmm. At the same time, President Obama, maybe one of the most charismatic individuals to occupy the White House, certainly in my lifetime, was a great speaker, very eloquent, and I met him 2 or 3 times, and he's very, very friendly. But his policies were the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were terrible. There was very seldom anything we agreed on. And so, again, you have to get past the personal, presentation and focus in on the policy. And if you can do that, you can make a better judgment about whether you support this policy or that policy.
Yeah.
Take away the personalities and focus in on the policy.
Yeah, it's it's what you do, for sure. Actions are bigger than words. And let me we're talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. I mean, you said he proves them wrong time and again. I mean, think about when he came out and he said, I found out that I was wiretapped, and the media freaks out and everything else. And then, of course, you being on the Intel Committee, and you guys are voting to release that memo, and we now know, we know that was true, I mean, and is there any more fallout from that, by the way? I haven't really heard anything else to come from, that memo, but that memo was very revealing.
Well, that's why you haven't heard anything more about it. Because it was accurate, and then of course the Democrat response to it was inaccurate and full of pejorative and personal attacks that really just were sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the factual.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So when we got off the radio, I guess it was probably Friday afternoon, the Arkansas Times, who was watching the Missouri district there, that particular judicial district. Max Brantley wrote on Friday that there's a change of plea hearing that is now set for Rusty Cranford. And basically it appeared on the federal court docket. Notice of hearing as to Milton Russell Cranford. This is the official notice for this hearing. Change of plea hearing set for June the 7th at 10 a.m. In MJ Courtroom, Springfield, before Magistrate Judge David P. Rush. This is a text-only entry. No document is attached. So, last week, decided just to give maybe a detailed summary of the Hank Wilkins plea. So Hank Wilkins, who had an intimate relationship with Rusty Cranford in terms of just this very tight-knit, you give me money. Rusty went to Hank Wilkins, according to that plea, and said, hey, I'm under federal investigation. I got to keep paying you to make it look like it's coming from me. Even though you're no longer in office and you're no longer passing bills and doing the stuff we want for extra money, I got to keep paying you. So you don't talk to the feds. That's probably what was really going on. This is incredible. I mean, as we watch this stuff roll out in front of us, The fact that Rusty Cranford is likely now going to change his plea from not guilty to guilty is very interesting to me. What will be in that plea? What is he going to plead guilty to? What do the feds have? Who else will be involved? How many other Senator A's will there be? Senator A, a senator from Arkansas who served in the House from this date to this date and serves in the Senate from this date to this date, right? What's it going to take here? Yeah, what's it going to take for, again, the leadership to come out and put out some sort of plan to curb corruption? Because at this point, I mean, this is bad. You're talking about, it was once said at the Marble Palace that it's a different situation down here today, and we've got a real opportunity to make some change and pass some legislation and do things. But we also have an opportunity to screw it completely up and get the blame for it. That was Senator Jim Hendren. He is now the president, the next president pro temp of the Senate. He's the governor's nephew. I mean, are we worried about the blame now? Are we? Come on, let's do something about it then. Right? I mean, like I've got a ton of policy disagreements with big government progressive Republicans. But the ends don't justify the means. Just because you like progressive policy or you like bigger government, it doesn't mean you need dishonest Republicans who are, in bed with Medicaid companies and passing legislation for extra money. That doesn't mean that you have to have those type of people to do it, right? Let's just have honest government. Can we just say we want honest government? Now, why is Rusty Cranford? Go to this. Go to the Democrat Gazette article on the change of plea, and Joe, scroll down to the very bottom of this Doug Thompson article, second to last paragraph. Cranford, back in March, was denied bail in part because of allegations he sought the murder of Jones. Now, Jones is the last name. I don't know what his first name is. I can't remember it. Jones, he's a New Jersey lobbyist who was involved in this scheme. That's part of the reason why this is federal. It's because they're using federal Medicaid dollars to bribe legislators. So the reason I bring this up is because Rusty Cranford has been in jail since March. Now, I want you to think about that. March, April, all of May. I mean, this guy's coming up on 3 months because I'm not sure when in March he was arrested. I think it was kind of the middle. So Rusty Cranford's had a lot of time to sit in a jail cell. Rusty Cranford's been denied bail because the feds accused him of murdering somebody. They say they got recordings of him trying to murder for hire, this guy up in New Jersey that was going to testify because he had already, that guy took a plea back in December. So now we have Rusty Cranford supposedly changing his plea. And the question is, what in the world does Rusty Cranford know? And what is he willing to give to stay out of jail? Again, he's been in jail. He did not make bail. He has been in jail for almost 3 months. And that's going to weigh on somebody, don't you think? Joe, don't you think? If you go look at, John Woods, Asa Hutchinson's boy, John Woods, okay? So he gets convicted, but he makes bail. But, that whole process, he was out. They had the trial delayed a bunch of times. You think maybe if John Woods was sitting in a jail cell for 6 months, he might start to think, maybe I need to plea this out. Maybe I need to take a plea here. I think that's what's happened here with Rusty Cranford. I think he's been in jail for almost 3 months, and I think he says, I don't like this very much, like all of us would say. And he's probably thinking, gosh, I've already served almost 3 months. That's time served. That's time served. I mean, if I were to get, 3 years jail instead of 20 or whatever it would be, I've 2 years and 9 months. I only have 2 years and 9 months to go at this point. If they were to say time served, because he's been he's been locked up for 3 months. You don't think those wheels are starting to turn? You don't think that in Rusty Cranford's mind he's starting to think, he's outside of the influence of the Marble Palace. He's in jail. He doesn't have these guys saying, hey, I need you to play ball. Hey, you're going to be okay. You're going to beat the rap, Rusty. No, everybody knows that's not going to happen. Chief among them, Rusty Cranford. And so the wheels are turning. He's sitting there in jail, and he says, you know what? I could rat on every one of these people, and I could reduce my jail sentence, and I could probably have a little bit more of a clear conscience. It's definitely crossed his mind. And so if you want to know why Rusty Cranford's changed his plea, it's because he's been in jail. He didn't make bail. I mean, the Gazette here says, Doug Thompson, Cranford was denied bail in March in part because of allegations that he sought the murder of Jones. The ongoing investigation into those allegations has not resulted in charges. Garrett argued at Cranford's bail hearing that the accusation was a groundless attempt to increase the pressure on Cranford by denying him bail. Cranford will appear before U.S. Magistrate David Rush in federal court in Springfield, according to the court's website. Well, I mean, his lawyer may have something here. I mean, I don't know. The report said that the FBI had recordings of him going to a former felon and asking that and saying that Jones needs to disappear, this New Jersey lobbyist who had already pled. Needs to disappear. And then he gave the guy, according to the reports, $500 and said there was going to be more. And then when he was arrested, like very soon after this meeting took place with the felon, he was arrested with $17,000 cash. You can presume that that is money that's going to go to the felon to go kill the guy from New Jersey. And a revolver was found on him, according to reports. So, desperation certainly is in play here. And you never know. Rusty Cranford may be sitting in a jail cell glad that he didn't go through with the plot, if in fact that's what happened. And, saying, you know what, I think I just need to cop a plea here. I need to just roll on everybody. And boy, can Rusty Cranford roll. I'm telling you, I have a feeling it's a big deal. Think about this for a second, okay? Go to this LinkedIn profile. Rusty Cranford is the CEO of the Cranford Coalition. The Cranford Coalition. Also, look at that, Cooper Cranford Agency. So it's the Cranford Coalition / Cooper Cranford Agency. I wonder if that's Eddie Cooper, former state representative who's involved in all of this. Now, scroll down here, because this is what's interesting to me. Political consultant, the Cranford Coalition, for the last 26 years and 6 months. This company was founded in January of 1992. They write about themselves, our firm prides ourselves on excellent, our firm pride ourselves, I guess they mean prides. Our firm prides ourselves on excellent customer service. We update our clients daily on Medicaid, health care, mental health, etc., etc., etc. Changes that may determine the way providers can do business. Gosh. Yeah. It's like, you know what I mean? Wink. Our firm prides itself. I think that's what you should say, not our firm prides ourselves. Our firm prides itself on excellent customer service. We update our clients daily on Medicaid, healthcare, mental health. Man, isn't that a crazy, that is nuts. That is an interesting little government relations lobbying firm since 1992. Now, let's think about that, because I started thinking. The name of the company is Cranford Coalition. And Rusty Cranford seems to be involved in everything from GIF fraud to Medicaid fraud to murder for hire plots. Let me say that again. Rusty Cranford tends to be involved in anything from GIF fraud to Medicaid fraud to murder for hire plots, people. So who exactly is the Cranford Coalition? Boy, we could have a lot of fun with that name. Who's the Cranford Coalition? Who is it? Who is it? Okay, well, it's definitely Mike and Neil. Mike and Neil's part of the Cranford Coalition. Now, I'm not saying officially like the lobbying firm. We're just using the term Cranford Coalition, okay? I mean, Mike and Neil's a part of it, right? Yeah, I mean, he went down there according to his own testimony, and he saw John Woods, who also is a part of the Cranford Coalition. Boy, I mean, this is a coalition of Arkansas good old boys. And Mike and Neil was like, gosh, John Woods has a Little Rock furnished apartment, and he has got autographed pictures of Michael Jordan and a bat signed by Pete Rose. Oh, my goodness. He said this on the stand. He said, John Woods must have it going on. He must have a way to make some money around here. I need to ask him what's going on. And that's what started the whole thing. And you know what? You had Milton Russell Rusty Cranford right there, his coalition. He's always looking for new members, from what I can tell. So he's part of it, right? Let's see, who else would be part of the coalition? Eddie Cooper, he's part of that coalition. I mean, the Jones guy up in New Jersey, he was part of that coalition up until, he needed to be made an offer that he couldn't refuse. Now, what about Hank Wilkins? Yeah, former state representative Hank Wilkins, who pled guilty. We got a lot of guilty pleas. Haven't I been saying who knows how many more guilty pleas that we'd be getting? I did say that a couple weeks ago. Had no idea it was going to be Rusty Cranford. I'm telling you, folks, there are people shaking in their boots at the Marble Palace right now thinking about what all Rusty Cranford knows on them. I'm telling you right now, I bet you there are. What does Rusty Cranford know, and when did he know it? I bet there's people right now going through their emails. They're checking every email Rusty Cranford's ever sent them. I bet that's going on right now. Hang on, wait a second. This guy is such a huge lobbyist. He's had connections with everybody. And I guarantee you, everybody's like, oh, gosh, he's pleading not guilty now? What? What is going on? Who else is a member of that coalition? Well, I tell you who's a big player in the coalition here, the good old boy coalition, the coalition cabal, if you will. Preferred Family Health Care. Preferred Family Health Care, they're part of the coalition, right? Of course they are. Yeah, you got the Preferred Family Health Care that is benefiting from all of these state contracts right here in Arkansas. And they're the subject of a federal investigation that's ensnared Arkansas politicians and Arkansas lobbyists, and yet the state of Arkansas is still maintaining their contracts with Preferred Family Health Care because they claim that they've cleaned things up. Give me a break. Give me a break. Oh, we've cleaned things up. Things are fine now. The opportunity for corruption, apparently, in the state of Arkansas is immense. And the real problem is we have leaders who don't want to actually reform the system to keep this from happening again. You say what you want to about Mike Beebe. Say what you want to about Ted Sewell. But Max Brantley does have a point, and I know Max Brantley has always just had this crusade against Ted Sewell, who was involved in this bribes and stuff like that. I get that, but the fact of the matter is, when all that stuff came to light, guess what? Contract's over. Cancel the contract with those companies. Why aren't we doing that with Preferred Family Health Care? Because I think it just involves too many people. I mean, that's the only thing I can. It's just there is too many. There are too many tributaries here that lead to the central hub of this. That's my speculation. I mean, look at the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Look what they wrote. This is a huge story. Hang on. Right here. Hang on a second. No, I'll tell you where it is. I've got it right in front of me. Yeah, so, Joe, records bribed lawmakers backed drug fund grants. Doug Thompson exposing that there is essentially a government fund here that is used to distribute money, and that you can specifically earmark it. That there are grants this is Doug Thompson, grants from the General Improvement Fund obtained through bribes to Arkansas lawmakers by a former lobbyist followed two distinctly different paths through state government. Talks about Hank Wilkins. He admitted to taking bribes, Rusty Cranford and all that other stuff. Let me see here. I got to zoom in here on this because I got Get some visual problems here. Yeah, here we go. Well, I went too far. Forgive me, folks. Having some technical problems with the electronic device. So this whole situation, I think, has to do with the fact, from what I can tell through this article, and I don't know if you guys have read this yet, but documents say that Wilkins directed the improvement money, the general improvement money, through a division of the State Department of Human Services. And so not only are they good, and this is the point here, not only are these people pretty good at laundering money through setting up lobbying firms, laundering money through the lobbying firm, laundering money through the Christian college. Not only are they good at lobbying the money or laundering the money through there, they're also pretty darn good at laundering the money through existing state agencies, and then getting the state agencies to send out the grant that eventually becomes the payment for services. Documents say Wilkins directed the improvement money through a division of the State Department of Human Services. In Northwest Arkansas, former lawmakers Micah Neal, John Woods, Asa Hutchinson's boy, directed General Improvement Fund money to Cranford's fledgling company, AmeriWorks, using one of 8 economic development districts in the state. Unlike the grants in the Woods and Neal cases, the source of at least $245,000 in bribe-tainted grants supported by Wilkins, so State Representative Wilkins, who pled guilty, was under the direct supervision of Human Services. You're telling me we don't need to void these contracts when our own government has been involved? Our own government agencies have been manipulated to launder money. That's what it looks like to me. Our own government agencies here. This is insane, folks. I had a text about this, and I'm going to read it for you real quick. The system is ignoring what appears to be a big part of the problem. Corrupt contracts. Corrupt contracts. Right before the primary, I remember specifically talking about, maybe a week before the primary, talking about our whole procurement system is corrupt. I think we're going to find out. We're going to find out more about that. My prediction is in the coming months, we're going to find out just how bad our corrupt contract system really is, and how we spend state money. It's one thing for the legislators to use their private contacts with Christian colleges or lobbying firms. I mean, but to use our own government agencies to direct the fund, to appropriate the money to an agency in DHS, and then urge DHS to give the money to here, and then you're getting a cut of that? Whoa. Come on now. Our government is are we not supposed to be able to trust our government agencies? And what are these government agencies? Who do they answer to the executive branch. So you have to understand something here. This is a big deal. You now have the legislative branch manipulating executive branch agencies for whatever reason to enrich themselves. Do you understand what a huge problem this is? We got to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News. Back in a moment.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to TripleRPawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's TripleRPawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, TripleRPawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Message and data rates may apply. Please do not text and drive. Insurance offered by Travel Guard Group Inc.
This is Mother Government. I come to the people of Arkansas with an important announcement. In disloyal circles, some are questioning the scope and size of government and telling the people government programs should not waste the labors of the people under the guise of taking care of them. This is a thought I must correct. People of Arkansas, you should not believe everything you hear unless it comes from a government source. Let me, Mother Government, set the record straight. You know you can trust me. After all, would your own mother lie to you? You should know the brand new, terrific program known as Arkansas Works has nothing to do with the old, bad program known as the Obamacare private option. Arkansas Works is good. People who say otherwise are bad and are seeking to undermine my collective vision for progress. If these groups continue in their criticism, then you should question their party loyalty. Tell them to quit focusing on this single issue. And then remind them Mother Government says the future of Arkansas depends on this single issue. In my next address, I will discuss the need to prepare your fellow citizens for the next round of revenue gathering that will be needed to continue funding my motherly goals. This message was brought to you by our partner, Aristocrats, serving Arkansas. Thank you for listening, and remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, wrapping things up here. We're wrapping up this hour talking about Arkansas corruption, everything from Jake Files and the special prosecutor that's going to be appointed, as well as Milton Russell Rusty Cranford changing his plea likely this week from not guilty to guilty. That'll be an interesting read. But this news about the DHS fund that was also used to launder money, Doug Thompson writing, unlike the grants in the Woods and Neal cases, the source of at least $245,000 bribe-tainted grants supported by Wilkins was under the direct supervision of the Human Services. It was the, Wilkins controlled the money. It was a treatment fund in 2013. The Division of Behavioral Health Services of the State Department of Human Services administered the fund. Here's the kicker. The fund accepts money from a variety of sources besides the Improvement Fund. Those sources include general revenue, federal block grants, and money from charitable organizations. Wow. Now that is a Pandora's box that needs to be researched and investigated.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Kim Jong-un and the meeting actually takes place. I mean, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of positive, and then there's some potential positive things, and I think President Trump is an integral part of that right now.
No, I think that's true, and I think that you would think after almost a year and a half in, as he's been president now for almost a year and a half, he's proven them wrong at every turn. I mean, I don't always agree with necessarily the tone or the type of rhetoric that the president puts out there. But one of the things that I've had to come to terms with, and I had to do this with Obama, you've got to look past the personality and look at the policy, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, our economic trajectory has improved tremendously. Opportunities for people across the economic spectrum are much, much better. I mean, historically better. And so, I know it's easy to focus in on someone with a big personality, be honest about it, a big ego. It's easy to get focused in on all of that. And that's one of the things that I've had to condition myself to is to look beyond that and focus in on the policy and the numbers. And you'll see that there is an awful lot to be excited about that has transpired over the last year and a half or so, and that's directly attributable to this president. Mm-hmm. At the same time, President Obama may be one of the most charismatic individuals to occupy the White House, certainly, in my lifetime. Was a great speaker, very eloquent, and I met him 2 or 3 times, and he's very, very friendly. But his policies were the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were terrible. There was very seldom anything we agreed on. And so, again, you have to get past the personal, presentation and focus in on the policy. And if you can do that, you can make a better judgment about whether you support this policy or that policy.
Yeah.
Take away the personalities and focus in on the policy.
Yeah, it's what you do, for sure. Actions are bigger than words. And let me we're talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. I mean, you said he proves them wrong time and again. I mean, think about when he came out and he said, I found out that I was wiretapped, and the media freaks out and everything else. And then, of course, you being on the Intel Committee, and you guys are voting to release that memo, and we now know, we know that was true, I mean, and is there any more fallout from that, by the way? I haven't really heard anything else to come from, that memo, but that memo was very revealing.
Well, that's why you haven't heard anything more about it, because it was accurate. And then, of course, the Democrat response to it was inaccurate and, full of pejorative and personal attacks that really just were sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the factual presentation we made in that memo. It's important to know that, if that were false, if we had done, put bad information out there, the media would be still harping on it. Mm-hmm. That memo issue has gone away. Then we're moving on to the next issue. Now, even our findings and recommendations that are coming out on the Russia investigation that the House Intel Committee just recently concluded, you haven't heard much about that either. And there was big furor over, they're shutting down the investigation too soon, and how can we do this? Well, you haven't heard much about that either. So you'll, in the next, week or so, that's all been submitted to the intelligence community for declassification.
Okay.
It'll come out, be made public, and there will be a minority view addendum, but they'll all come out as a single document, the findings, recommendations, and then the minority view. And see for yourself, make the assessment on your own. I'm not going to try and bias you or anything like that, and then we'll talk again when you've had a chance to review all that.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to do it. It'll be out there online in public space, and you'll be able to pull it and look at it. And you will be absolutely amazed when you read it.
Okay, I'm now intrigued. I can't wait. That's sounds awesome. Because I just feel like I just know the media is what they're doing is they're certainly putting out something that I don't believe is factual when it comes to this whole Russia investigation and everything else. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. Congressman Rick Crawford, Can we talk about the tariff situation that's kind of been going on with China and there's probably some Arkansas farmers out there listening, and they probably kind of want to know what your thoughts are on that.
I hope there are a lot of farmers listening right now, because I don't know that look, there's a whole lot of farmers that have my cell phone.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, just coming off a pretty information-packed hour. On the last hour, you should get it if you didn't get the podcast. It's up right now at Conduit. Is it not up yet? Okay, yeah. Well, it's halfway uploaded. I can see the screen from here, so it's almost fully uploaded. It'll be available. But listen to the rest of this hour and then go back and get it. Hey, folks. Hey, welcome back to the program. One we got on the line, Senator Linda Collins-Smith is with us. Linda, welcome back to the program.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'll just start with the obvious. I was really disappointed with the primary results. I am certainly sorry that you lost that election. I think your conservative stance is going to be truly missed in that seat.
Well, I certainly am going to hate to leave my colleagues down there with a couple of less great conservatives who followed the platform. I think that I would love to be down there to help them finish some work that we've started. Mm-hmm. And they just need to know that I'll still be there to help them.
Well, one of the things that you did stand so strong on, Linda, was the Second Amendment. And I saw this piece. I wanted to have you on to talk about it. Concerns voiced on guns in Arkansas schools. Moms, educators get turned in front of the commission. There's a commission that was formed by the governor to study school safety after some of these school shootings that have taken place. I wanted to get your take on this. Where do you think the right policy is going forward?
Well, I looked at this article that you've mentioned here, and I do have some concerns. Obviously, safety of our children is critical, and we want them educated. But while they're in the care of our, of our schools and the teachers, and while they're away from our families, it's critical they need to be safe as well. But I read the direction. I look at this article, and I have a lot of concerns in there. And I think that, the first thing that I'd like to see is the accountability of the local area. We want to make sure that it's on the community and not on the state. We can mandate some things, but we certainly don't want that. You don't want that coming from the state government.
So you're saying you should leave, so whatever the gun policy is or the no gun policy is, you think it should be left to the local school board or the local school governments?
Well, certainly if it's going to go the direction of what that article is, it's obvious that is a more left-leaning it's more about controlling your Second Amendment rights and the right to protect those children. If that article is an indication of where the governor would stand on protecting our children, then I would say definitely you don't want that, because truly, think of this, Paul, every school, every layout, every community, every tax base is different. Yeah. Why would you want the state of Arkansas to mandate everything the same? Mm-hmm. And you don't want a paper policy. Every school should have a true physical safety policy plan. And I'm telling you, that should include some type of physical plan, including a plan that would involve, as far as I'm concerned, a person that's armed to be able to shoot back if it's necessary to protect children.
Yeah.
Now, that accountability, in my opinion, you have a school board, which is elected. The school board should have accountability, and so should the superintendent of that school. But that also means parents should be vocal. And the safety of your children should be a critical issue in your community. So I think families, I think every community should take charge. And I think one of the things that we have to do, and we should rise in America and in our state, and that is to remove that no-gun zone policy. I think that's one of the failures. We have put our children at such risk, and when do you wake up, America, and local communities, and demand that be removed? But this article concerns me. It very much concerns me. Does it you when you read that?
Oh yeah, it does. And the direction of where you're, people don't see guns as tools. Tendency they see guns as like sentient beings. That it's the gun's fault and everything else. They don't understand. Well, I'll tell you, one community does understand that the only way to end the sick fantasies of these psychos that come in with death on their minds is to send bullets back in their other direction. Send bullets right back at them. Now, the community of Clarksville, they realized this a couple of years ago, and they started training their teachers, and they've had, the success. It's been a model, I think. If other people want to do it, they should look at Clarksville. But the Clarksville superintendent is actually, his name is David Hopkins, and he's quoted in this article. He's on the commission, which is good that he's on this commission. But he questioned why the speakers, who were anti-gun, seemed to support school resource officers but not armed school district employees. The volunteer armed school employees receive the same training on weapons that law enforcement officers receive, he said, adding that his district can't afford to hire sufficient numbers of school resource officers, but can afford to train, school personnel to be, to carry here. And so we do have an example again in Clarksville about what is possible, what is feasible, and it's just interesting how people just they don't support that they want less. They want less responders available, and if you're only going to say we need school resource officers, then you're basically advocating for less first responders that can be there in case something really bad happens.
Exactly, and there's something else that I want to point out when you say that. In the area where it says this lady, I'm sorry, I don't have her name, but she points out that the FBI reports that of 160 shooting cases between 2000 and 2013. That there was only one Marine stopped a shooting. That may be only one reported during that time, but I'm going to tell you something. We know that in the last several years alone, there have been many cases where citizens have seen shootings stop, and I have to say that I guess I just don't believe that, or that I guess what I'm saying, maybe that's the only one that was reported. But we know that time and time again we've seen cases where the news has said it's not important to show where someone stopped killings or stopped someone from getting harmed. I think it's a fantastic news that someone stopped people from being slaughtered, and I think it should be the top of the hour news that should be reported. And so I think that to shed it in the light that it was not important or that it's not big news, I think that should be.
Yeah, let's be clear. I'm leaving something really important out of this article. We both have the speakers at this commission were from Moms Demand Action. So that's Michael Bloomberg,
yes.
Radical anti-Second Amendment, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And so that was their bent. And so, we know the governor has been favorable to them in the past when it comes to taking meetings with them and things like that. And so we definitely do need to be aware that this commission might be, kind of, I hope it's not hijacked. I hope we have recommendations that just say, hey, look, we need our local school districts to have more freedom here. I mean, Austin Bailey, one of the representatives there from Moms Demand Action, said, and they always say this, she said she supports the Second Amendment right to own and bear arms, was critical of the governor for not advocating for additional regulations to address school shootings. Quote, you have the power to recommend regulations that will save children's lives, and I hope you do that. Please don't endanger our children and teachers by recommending that more guns be introduced into our schools. So it is a very leftist ideology that's being kind of advocated here, at least at this one meeting. And I mean, I think most Arkansans would agree that it's the gun-free zone problem. They know that they're going to have a maximum amount of time to inflict the murder and the rage if there's less guns, less first responders who are there on campus ready to go and fully trained.
Exactly. And I'm not looking at the screen, so I didn't know that we should have stated that, and I thank you for clarifying that. But I want to make sure that everyone else knows this as well. You know, before, when we did the legislation, that the so-called enhanced carry mess, and it is a mess, and it remains a mess. But if you'll remember something I want to point out with this, that's the only group that got to visit with the governor prior to that legislation being sealed the deal. That was two pieces of legislation that created that mess. And so they're the only group that got to meet with the governor. The groups that I mean made the appointment, you know, after the fact. They did not get to meet. A group that went down that was against this legislation that passed did not get to meet until after all that legislation passed. So I just want to make sure you understand, the people understand this. So when you see what's going on, the people need to speak loud and clear, not only to your legislators, but make sure you're talking to families out there, that they speak up in their local communities about these circumstances. That's your children. Your most valuable asset is your child. You better speak up. You didn't go to the polls to vote, but you better be speaking up. Those are your children sitting in those seats in those schools, and so you need to protect them. So you need to speak up about what's going to go on in the schools.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure I point that out, because I was there, and I'm the one who made those appointments, and they did not get to be seen until after that legislation passed. And so it's unpopular. And that remember, went from 6,000 to over 13,000 members of Patriots Act 746. And the reason it doubled like that was the outright anger and upset and what they found out about that legislation. So I just want to point that out.
No, that's certainly, you know, it's a good thing to point out there. We're talking with Senator Linda Collins Smith about really, you know, keeping our kids safe at school.
Safety virtual.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about. And, you know, it is a serious issue. The concept, you mentioned enhanced carry. You know, the idea of was just simply going to let, you know, professors carry if they had a concealed carry license, and of course, you know, that absolutely was unacceptable to the economic elites, the university elites that are, you know, controlling things here in the state. And so that bill ended up just really being, I don't know, it just dissected and added to. And how many pages of regulations I mean, that's really what they did. They took what would have been a simple bill, wouldn't have been any new regulations, and to adding how many pages of regulations, Linda?
It's approximately 44-ish pages now. Which, you know, now it's just increased. It's just absolutely, how does anyone carry that? And another thing, Paul, remember, and I want to ask you something that we don't talk about. We added all these pages of regulations, like 44 approximate pages now of regulations. And remember, your excellent Senate Judiciary Committee failed that hijacked bill. Failed it. It was pulled out of committee, and people passed it worrying about the NRA. I'm going to tell you something. Even the NRA went on the news radio and said there's something wrong when that second bill came back around, and it just became a mess. So I just want to say to you that when you think about this bill, think about this regulation. If there is no penalty for concealed carry, and all this regulation is on there, let's say they carry somewhere that this regulation says you're not supposed to carry, and they're concealed. You got a concealed carry license. So if there's no penalty, do you really care if there's all that regulation?
Yeah. Do we have any word? I mean, when do you think the Attorney General is going to respond to your letter asking for an opinion?
Well, they say that it's out there, and they say that it's done, and they say that we're waiting on it to get the final okay for release. And so I'm waiting on that final release. I guess I need to send a reminder letter, a formal letter of reminder, and I guess I'm going to have to do that. I hated to do that, and the election, the primary is over, so I guess it's safe to send that letter now.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll do that and say, okay, I think it's okay to go ahead and do the opinion. I'm just I'm not trying to be ugly. I am trying to get a response to the important question for the people of the state of Arkansas.
All righty, Senator Linda Collins-Smith, we appreciate you coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me about this important safety issue for our children.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Hey, folks, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll be talking with Fort Smith attorney Joey McCutcheon about two things. There's a special prosecutor that's been appointed for Senator Jake Files. We'll talk about that. Also, Ecclesia College did finally release some documents. We've told a lot. The Gazette described them as a trove of documents. We're going to talk to Joey McCutcheon about that in our last long segment of the day. But we got to take a break right now. We'll be back in just a moment.
Who's next to zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Oh, okay, fine, whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Coincidentally, and this is purely coincidence. Well, I mean, it's not. It's not, because there is an order to all things. It's funny, our Western minds. It's funny, our Western minds are wired to be. We think we are so advanced and so scientific that we want to write off so many things as coincidences instead of our brains used to be wired differently to, we would believe more in providence and the reason behind all things before we would just write it off as, that's just a coincidence. It's interesting. But I could get off on that rabbit trail and have a lot of fun. On our best of, so for those of you that are only listening to the show, and you don't watch us online. Online, when we go to our local breaks at the bottom of the hour and at the top of the hour, we just play old Conduit News interviews and things like that. We call it Paul from the Past, and we just kind of, have something else running. Right now, what we have running is an interview that we did with Congressman Rick Crawford a couple weeks ago. Right, Joe? It was a couple weeks ago or something like that. And so Congressman Rick Crawford was on the show, and he recently came out with a new Facebook policy, right? Where he is that the one that's running? Is it the Facebook one that's running, or is it an earlier one? Okay, well, well, the last time he was on, he talked about his new Facebook policy. He's now transitioning to a text message way to communicate with Facebook because of he said in their interview, because there's a lot of people that come on his Facebook page that don't even live in his district, and they just are trolls, and it's very difficult to sift through. You have to spend all this time. But like if we go to a text message situation where the area codes and that they actually live in your district, and it's easier to help and try to address the needs of constituents. And so, and that's what he said, and I think that's definitely worth exploring. But I also know that Rick Crawford is on the Intel Committee, the House Intel Committee, and it's a very, very big deal. It's a big deal, and I did ask him a question at the end of the interview. I said, hey, does any of this Facebook transition stuff have to do with maybe some information on Facebook that, you're aware of? And he and I'm paraphrasing. He basically alluded to the fact that there may be some more stuff that comes out on Facebook. And I would just tell you that on the New York Times and on the front page of the Drudge Report right now, we have a story about how Zuckerberg gave contradictory testimony to what the facts now are. Facebook gave device makers deep access to data and users and friends. The company formed data-sharing partnerships with Apple, Samsung, and dozens of other device makers, raising new concerns about its privacy protections. I don't know if you've been on Facebook recently, but if you have, you know that they are basically trying to kill you with kindness. I mean, they're just trying to be so, hey, this is, we're dedicated to you and to your privacy and all this other stuff, and it's just very interesting. The New York Times saying that Facebook reached data-sharing partnerships with at least 60 device makers, including Apple, Amazon, BlackBerry, Microsoft, and Samsung. Over the last decade, starting before Facebook apps were widely available on smartphones, company officials said the deals allowed Facebook to expand its reach and let device makers offer customers popular features on social networks, such as messaging like buttons and address books. But the partnerships, whose scope has not previously been reported, raised concerns about the company's privacy protections and compliance with a 2011 consent decree with the Federal Trade Commission. Facebook allowed the device companies access to the data of users' friends without their explicit consent, even after declaring that it would no longer share such information with outsiders. Some device makers could retrieve personal information, even from users' friends who believed they had barred any sharing, the New York Times found in its reporting. I think it's going to get even worse. I think when this is all said and done, you've got these accusations that Facebook is just listening to you all the time, and has been. That it's just listening to you all the time. That's why I don't understand these people that are putting these Google Alexa devices in their house. Personally, I don't understand it. The capabilities of violation of your privacy, I mean, whether it's for marketing or not, or whether it's for more nefarious purposes, is just immense. It's absolutely immense. And so, anyway, it's just very interesting. I thought it was when I was watching the feed of what we were broadcasting, I was just reminded of these are the national headlines of the day, folks. When we come back, Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith attorney. We're going to talk Jake Files. We're going to talk Ecclesia College. We're going to talk more about the state of Arkansas and the quest to expose the corruption in the state of Arkansas. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Back in just a moment.
And when there's problems and they want to call, they got an issue, they call me, and I make myself available to my constituents. And I want them to know this, that this goes back to the look past the personality and the rhetoric and focus in on the numbers. The numbers are on our side. Now, I will say this, in the rhetoric that ensued immediately after the announcement of the tariffs, the Chinese are announcing they're going to retaliate X, Y, and Z and all this other kind of stuff. And you look at what's happening with the soybean market. So the soybean market reacts and starts to go down. I can't prove this, but common sense dictates, and based on the past behavior of China, you can probably assume that they shorted soybeans before they started the economic saber rattling.
Okay.
So they shorted the soybean market. That's number one. Run the price down through this process, and when it finds the bottom, then they buy up in cash. So good deal for China. Okay, so we again, this really kind of underlies the whole point of what Trump is making, is that they manipulate, they don't play by the rules, they utilize their status as a developing economy as they're recognized by the WTO, which absolutely is completely unfounded. They are not a developing economy. They are a very developed and aggressively growing economy, and in fact a belligerent actor in the economy.
Yeah.
And so they shouldn't have that kind of status. But when they get that status, they get to play by a different set of rules. And so that's one thing to consider. It's been going on for 20-plus years. So all these things have to happen to get right. But in the short term, is this going to affect Arkansas farmers? It might to some degree, but by the time we get to harvest, you look at what's going on right now. Chinese have a huge demand for soybeans and corn. They've got to buy it somewhere. Argentina's having a crop failure for all intents and purposes, major drought. They can't rely on Argentina to fill the orders and to meet their demand. So the soybeans are going to come from somewhere else. So in a manner of speaking, these commodities like soybeans and corn, to a large degree, are what you might call fungible, in that in the marketplace, they're going to move around. They're going to go where they need to go. So we might not necessarily have to directly sell our soybeans to China with a 25% tariff tacked on it. That's not even going to happen. But if it did, we could just transship through Argentina and other countries just like they've been doing with steel. So, the point I'm trying to make is our soybeans are going to find their way into the marketplace to fill the demand in the marketplace. And this is a short-term blip whereby the Chinese are doing everything they can to their own gain to take effect or take advantage of a market, a short-term market advantage, if you will, that they created.
Yeah.
So none of the fundamentals have changed. They have to consume our soybeans.
Yeah.
They just don't have the resources themselves. They've got 1.4.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. We've got Fort Smith attorney Joey McCutcheon is with us. Joey, welcome back to the program.
Morning, Paul. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. I would like to start, if we can, with the news. Late last week on Thursday, there was a hearing scheduled, to try to get Ecclesia College to finally comply with the FOIA. In this lawsuit, you represent Jim Parsons, who sued to try to figure out where our taxpayer money was going. And the hearing was canceled because they did release what was described by the Gazette as a trove of documents. How many documents was it?
Yeah, not a whole lot of documents. Unfortunately, we didn't get as many as what we would have liked. But we're going to be taking depositions shortly. It looks like we went down the deposition route. They provided records. We canceled the depositions based upon records. We look at the records. We don't think we've got what we asked for, so we file a motion to compel with the court, and then shortly before the hearing, they say this is all we've got. Basically, there's no reason to go through with a hearing if they say what they've got. So basically, we're going to be persistent. We're going to take a deposition. We're going to see if this is all they've got.
Wait a second. So it sounds like there's another delay. It's another delay tactic. So they said we released them, no need to have the hearing, and you're saying that you still don't have what you need.
Well, I'm saying they say that's all they've got. I'm not convinced that's all they've got. But that's what that's what Travis Story, Bob Ballinger's partner, says is all he's got. So, whether that's all they have or not, don't know.
Okay.
But there's an illegal exaction here, and that's the documents that we have requested. Documents that relate to all the funds of the GIF fund money obtained pursuant to the request from Micah Neal or John Wood.
So specifically, what are you looking? What document are you looking for specifically, or what is the information that you're looking for? Like how specifically it was spent, how it was all allocated, or are you looking for bank statements? What are you looking for exactly?
Yeah, all that type of stuff. I want to know any disbursements that from Ecclesia to regarding GIF funds pursuant to the request of Micah Neal or John Woods. I want to know where that money went once it hit once our public dollars hit the Ecclesia bank account. I want to know what Ecclesia did with that money.
And I think we're entitled to it, considering they're at the scandal of now, a convicted state senator and lobbyist, as well as, they pled guilty. Orrin Paris and Micah Neal pled guilty. I mean, I think we need to know where that money went. Do you think the state has any obligation here to audit Ecclesia or attempt to go in there to find out what happened with our money?
Yeah, I do. I think that anything and everything needs to be done to, as you say, and I agree, what happened to our money. Because, as we know, $700,000 of taxpayer dollars went to a private college. If you believe what they're saying, they're not actually a college; they're a church. So, but we need to know what happened to our money. And when we get several transaction tickets and a QuickBooks account, maybe that's all they've got. I mean, maybe it is all they've got. But the first round we didn't get. The first round of trying to get those documents, we said we were provided all the documents. Well, apparently that wasn't the case. And now, shortly before a motion to compel, we get additional documents. So we're not going away.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully,
and ultimately, we think that they're claiming that Ecclesia is a private college. Well, they are intertwined with our government money. We think ultimately we're going to get all the documents because they should be FOIAble.
I agree,
and that's the ultimate claim.
Do you think, speaking of FOIA, do you think there needs to be anything done to strengthen our FOIA laws?
I do. I think that FOIA, and this is going to be something I'm going to push for. I think that FOIA needs to apply to our state representatives and our state senators, so that just like there's open meeting requirements for school boards and city councils, there should be open meeting requirements where our state senators and our state legislators are doing their business in committee meetings and not in back rooms. And ultimately, I'm going to ask, and it may be a people's referendum, because I think that needs to happen. I think that FOIA needs to apply to state representatives, state senators. They need to do their business in sunshine, just like school boards and city councils.
So would that mean that their emails would be FOIAble, would be freedom of information? Would that apply to their emails, for example?
Yeah. I mean, I think open open documents, open records. That's part of FOIA, and then certainly open meetings. So that when we pass out, for example, like we're going to be talking about issue 1, which places an arbitrary price tag on the value of human life in just a second, I think. That discussion needs to be occurring in committee meetings. The people had 20 minutes to discuss issue 1 during last session, so all the deals were cut. In the smoke-filled rooms of the Capitol, and not where the people can see this. And we know what happens when that type of conduct occurs.
Yeah,
we get corruption, and
let's talk about that.
Do we have corruption?
Yeah, we have it everywhere. It is, and now that Rusty Cranford is, we talked about this in the last hour. Now that Rusty Cranford is likely to change his plea later this week from not guilty to guilty, you just got to wonder. He knows everything, and I was saying last hour that the reason Rusty Cranford's probably changed his plea is because he actually has been in custody this whole time. He's been sitting in a jail cell, and he's probably thinking, no, I think I'd like to serve less time. I don't want to serve the maximum sentence for all this stuff. And I think he's going to roll on a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are really nervous about it, and that's generally the corruption. But then specifically over in your neck of the woods, over the weekend, or I guess Friday afternoon, the Arkansas Times broke the story that there was a new item added to the docket up there in the Missouri district where Rusty Cranford's scheduled to go on trial in September. And they're saying that now he's going to I'm sorry. I'm getting my stories confused. The Arkansas Times reported that Jake Files, that there was a special prosecutor that was going to be appointed for Jake Files, and this was huge news because this has to do with $80,000, the wire transfer from David Norsworthy to Jake Files' company, and it has to also, you pointed out, it has to do with the bad tort reform law that's on the ballot this November. Talk about that, Joey.
That's right. I think that's really big news. Back in April, Sebastian County Prosecutor Danny Shue sent a letter to U.S. Attorney Dak Keys, basically asking the question, what's going on here with this $80,000 wire transfer? We've had allegations it's in violation of federal law. We know that Jake Files is coming up in June, and his sentencing. So the question primarily becomes, what are the feds doing? They've had this for over a year now. They've thoroughly investigated this. Is that going to be part of the plea deal? And did Jake Files? What did Jake Files tell the feds on David Norsworthy, this $80,000 unexplained, unreported wire transfer? Now we know that Sebastian County prosecutor has filed a motion, got an order, and there's going to be a special prosecutor looking into this matter. Now, there's no question that the state police have had this matter for a long time. The feds have had this matter for over a year now, this $80,000 wire transfer. We know that David Norsworthy is a huge player in Issue 1, which takes away the rights of the most vulnerable in society, our elderly, puts a price tag on their life of $500,000. Now we know that 1 week after tort reform was filed, similar bill back in November of 14, 1 week after David Norsworthy, a power broker at the Capitol, a lobbyist, sends this $80,000 wire transfer. Hopefully this week we will know who the prosecutor will be, and there will be accountability.
Doesn't this
gotta be accountability?
Doesn't this undermine? I think because of this tort reform amendment, where the tort reform bill that Jake Files, it looks like got the $80,000 for, that's very similar to what we're all going to be voting on. To me, it undermines any effort. I don't want to have a back and forth debate with supporters of Issue 1 this November about, the merits of this and the merits of that. I think any argument they make that doesn't address the fact that this is a nursing home law, that this was tort reform specifically for nursing homes, when we have judges that are pleading guilty to accepting bribes to lower judgments that were against nursing homes. We have this David Norsworthy, $80,000. Any defense to get people to vote for issue 1 should start with explaining this away. I don't even want, because you've got pro-life organizations that are against this, rightfully so, and now they're coming out and saying, no, issue 1 is pro-life, and there's an unholy alliance between the family council and with trial attorneys. No, none of that. If you guys want to have a legitimate debate about the merits of issue 1, I think you must start by explaining away Michael Morton, Judge Maggio accepting the bribe, and this $80,000 wire transfer. And explain away the special interest. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, let's not let the fact be go unnoticed that David Norsworthy is the business partner of Michael. Or
you're talking about Michael Morton.
With Michael Morton. Yeah. David Norsworthy is the business. Michael Morton, obviously Maggio, to lower Michael Morton's judgment against his nursing home, pled guilty to bribery. Now we know that the partner, David Norsworthy, has bribed I'll call it a bribe. It's unexplained. If this was a loan, then why wasn't it reported by Senator Files? This wasn't a gift. I mean, come on, this is. And these same people, these same nursing home owners, want to write the rules of the court to rig the jury system against children, stay-at-home moms, and our elderly. And so it is a fundamental, foundational question. When we know at least one senator has been bribed, and hey, if he had an explanation, why hasn't he come forward? If I receive an $80,000 wire transfer and somebody's calling it a bribe, I'm going to say, no, I built a house for David Norsworthy, or I did this, or I did that. Produce the document. But you're absolutely right. Issue 1 is flawed. We've got Jake Files. It happened back November of 14, but what happened after that issue never got on the ballot, and then we had more tort reform that got kicked off the ballot. Then this year, the chickens came home to roost, and Jake Files suddenly becomes a co-sponsor of issue 1.
Yeah.
And I asked myself the question, and I had a conversation with Senator Files. Just what's going on here, Senator Files? Why did you all of a sudden change your tune? And that comes on the heels of him receiving other $30,000. Let's not forget about the $30,000 that he received from lobbyist Hawkins.
Yeah, Bruce.
That was unreported until the media got onto it.
Yeah, it's extremely. We just have a culture of corruption here. Now we're talking with Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith attorney. Joey, I would like for you to talk about. Did you see Senator Trent Gardner's op-ed in the Democrat Gazette that was for tort reform? Did you happen to read that?
Yeah, the one that the Arkansas State Chamber wrote for Senator Garner. Yeah, I saw it. Doesn't it? It sure makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, since tort reform is going to produce jobs and tort reform is going to lower insurance rates, the next thing they're going to be that it's a cure for cancer, I guess.
Uh-huh.
It's just amazing.
Well, and they're taking they're taking the other side's argument. I mean, you have saying this is not pro-life. Family Council says we are a pro-life organization from conception to natural death. And so then Trent Gardner says, no, it is pro-life. You have the other side that says this is going to hurt our elderly and their rights. And then that op-ed said, no, this is going to help our elderly. And so that's so frustrating to me when they just take that, because they know that the arguments against this are resonating with the people.
Who are we going to believe? Trent Garner, who is supported by big nursing home money, or are we going to believe Jerry Cox of the Family Council, who says that this places an arbitrary value on life, and that's the reason that he's against us? Are we going to believe Rose Mims with Arkansas Right to Life, who says that this is, that this will attract abortion doctors to our state? If you don't hold people accountable, I'm sorry. It's not good, and it rigs the jury system in favor of special interests. There's no question about it. It's just a rigged system.
And here we are talking about the merits and the pitfalls of what we're all going to be voted on this November, folks. You're going to get to have a say in this, yes or no. But knowing the culture of special interest concerning this particular issue in years past, with Jake Files, with the judge that said he accepted the bribe to lower the judgment, with all of this stuff, why in the world would they go forward and put this on the ballot with a massive amount of Republican support? Only in Arkansas would they. It's a shameless act where you have clearly a special interest that is doing everything they can to get this specific tort reform for the nursing home industry. And only in Arkansas, after you have the $80,000 in, or I don't know if we knew about the $80,000 yet, but we certainly knew about the Michael Morton stuff, you go ahead and do it anyway. They have to explain how this isn't just a special interest bailout for the nursing homes before we can even talk about the merits of the bill, in my opinion.
Because you have to think, if we were able to see the corruption, you wonder how much more corruption there is associated with this issue 1 and tort reform. It blows your mind that this can be on the ballot, but it is about education.
Yes.
I think when people understand that special interests are going to be writing the court rules and not judges and lawyers on both sides, it's going to be in that political cesspool down at the Capitol that's controlled by lobbyists, like Rusty Cranford and David Norsworthy, and they're going to be writing the rules that are going to deny, close the courthouse to our elderly when they're abused in nursing homes. I mean, it really, really is something that the voters have to really look at. And the only reason they want to act like, oh, we're just letting the voters. The only reason that they're letting the voters vote on this is because our founding fathers in 1874 put a specific provision in that said that legislatures could not cap damages. And that was brought about by the corruption by railroads in the 1870s. And now, ironically, nursing homes are trying to undo that provision that have protected our elderly, our children, our stay-at-home moms for year after year, 144 years.
Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith attorney, it's always a pleasure. Keep us posted on that Ecclesia stuff.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Joey McCutcheon, everybody. Hey, did you guys hear me get confused earlier? I started asking him a question about the $80,000 in the wire transfer, and I launched right back into the Rusty Cranford chasing his plea in Missouri. And, folks, I'm telling you, we're so corrupt that I can't even keep it straight. We got to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. Back in a moment.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
What you cooking? It smells familiar.
I'm cooking something amazing, new, and different, and you're going to love it, babe.
Really? It seems like we've had this dish before.
Don't believe me? Come and taste it for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm right. This tastes just like Obamacare.
No, actually, it's the new private option. I call this fantastic new dish Arkansas Works.
That's odd, because it looks and tastes just like Obamacare.
Why do you always have to be so critical? I'm in here cooking, trying to do something nice for the family.
Because I thought we talked about this before. I don't like Obamacare.
You just need to give it another chance.
So, you admit it's the same?
No, it's different. It's Arkansas Works.
Let me ask you something. Does it smell like Obamacare?
Yes.
Does it taste like Obamacare?
I suppose so.
Are you using the same ingredients to make it as you used to make Obamacare?
Yes.
Then how is your so-called new dish, Arkansas Works, not Obamacare?
Well, let me explain, honey. You will remember, recently, I had my name legally changed at your request, right?
Yes, I know. You had it changed from Duke to Rover. I dislike the name Duke, and I think Rover sounds so much more personally responsible.
Well, now that I'm called Rover instead of Duke, I believe I can take the same recipe and ingredients and create a dish with the same smell and taste from before.
Okay.
And because of my name change, you will love it.
I'm not buying it. And I just realized the name Duke and Rover are both common names for dogs.
PHP Parody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I want to remind everybody that you can get a copy of this broadcast very, very easily, and it's totally free. So if you've missed the first hour, if you missed the first half hour of this hour, you just got to go to conduitnews.com. You click on Video Archives or Podcasts. Very, very simple. You don't even have to go to conduitnews.com. You could just go to your iTunes store, search for Conduit News, or go to your SoundCloud, search for Conduit News, and you can just subscribe to get the podcast, and that's the audio-only version. But if you just want to watch us do the program live, feel free to go to facebook.com/Conduit News, and you can get the archive version of the program. You can watch the whole show over again in 2 minutes. 2 minutes time, you'll be able to go back and watch everything that you missed. While you're at facebook.com/Conduit News, give us a like, subscribe for notifications. You can also do the same thing at our YouTube channel, Conduit News YouTube channel, which we would encourage you to do, considering what may be to come. What may be to come in the Facebook when people find out more and more about Facebook and maybe some of the things they've been doing. I just have this suspicion some of you may want to start transitioning over to the YouTube channel, Conduit News, and subscribing and clicking the bell to get notifications. We have got to go. Arkansas, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great Monday. Be safe.